Hey, Expedition now rocking with your boy KOR XKLL, the last son of Planet Xbox, and you're listening to Super Podshots. Yeah, man, I don't know what's happening with the camera today. For some apparent reason, I've added a few things to my laptop, and it seems like this camera is just not wanting to work today for some odd reason. And I honestly, I have no idea why, but whatever. We're going to rock with it. We're going to keep it going. And until we figure out exactly what is happening with the camera. So anyway, I want to begin today's show just kind of like reflecting on a few things. One of the things I want to begin the show with is the rumor recently that the Xbox One or the next Xbox is supposed to be coming out sometime in spring of 2017 is going to be 10 teraflops. 10 teraflops. Let's be realistic here. There's no Xbox that's going to be 10 teraflops. There's a lot of reasons why it won't be 10 teraflops. Mainly because it's going to be extremely heavy in processing power, and it's going to make the Xbox extremely hot. You think the fan that's in the Xbox right now isn't big enough? Imagine when you have to get this new Xbox with this much processing power and try to contain it into a small plastic box to fit underneath your TV. It will melt consoles. It will melt consoles. But let's just think about the possibility of this thing actually working. The possibility of this thing actually working is a big, big thing. And a lot of people are clearly saying that it's not going to happen. I mean, I can understand why it wouldn't happen. But today I want to talk about the possibilities of it happening and why it may not be 10 teraflops, but it may be just enough to where it's pretty close. And they may take a hit to make it affordable. So one of the things I want to reflect on is, does Microsoft produce a newer version of the Xbox One and make it so powerful that fans will really have no choice but to upgrade? And the reason why I'm thinking this way is because there's a very thin line that Microsoft has to walk currently. And walking that line is not an easy task. When you look at what they've done over the last, I guess you could say 2.5, 3 years, going on 3 years or 3 years, you really have to consider all of the missteps that they had prior to getting to where they are today. And how does that shape their decisions for the next console? Now, we've been talking about this for weeks. I don't know how long we've been talking about it, but we've been talking about it for weeks. And it seems like this is just something is not going away. And it's just going to be a thing where Microsoft finally decides, you know what, we're going to, and especially with Phil and all the backlash Phil has probably received from all of the nonsense that we've seen from Digital Foundry and every other entity that wants to call the Xbox out. Clearly, Microsoft is probably going to step into this next arena and not take it as a joke. Let's just be honest here. For weeks, us in the comment section, the fans listening here, we sat up here and we spoke about these consoles and why some people feel like they shouldn't come out with a console. That the Xbox One is plenty capable. And I've said multiple times that yes, the Xbox One is plenty capable, but is it good enough for what they want? I think at the time they thought it would be. But probably as they progressed over the last couple of years, as games progress over the last couple of years, and the technology that they want to implement in today's games probably is not. Yes, it'll take it takes years for developers to learn optimization. It takes years for developers to get games texture-wise and graphically to get to a point to where we see things like Perfect Dark on the original 360 in comparison to Halo 4 or Gears 3 at the end of the life cycle of the 360. And I wouldn't even say the life cycle, but towards the end of the 360. Let's just be honest, it was kind of towards the end. And when you look at it from that perspective, yes, you want to sit up there and say there's plenty of untapped potential with the Xbox One, but I question whether it really is untapped. I really do question, is it really untapped? And the reason why I'm saying is it really untapped is because when you look at the games that have come out and the struggles that the Xbox has had and things like that, then you have to sit up there and say, well, I don't know if it's untapped. I think that, again, like I said before, that the Xbox may have been a stopgap when it came to producing a newer console. We all know that they went with a different design to try to be cheap. And that's just the reality of it. That's what they did. And it's funny because I had someone bash me the other day and say that, why are you talking about Xbox? You should be talking about PlayStation. You want to be a PlayStation fan. You want to be a Nintendo fan. Why do I have to always praise Microsoft if I see something that I think is either wrong or just a bad decision or a bad choice? I can't have an opinion. I have to be 100% behind every single thing they do. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make me an authentic podcaster, and it's not doing a good service to the listener. So it has nothing to do with me bashing the Xbox One. I think the Xbox One is an amazing console. I've said this before. I think the Xbox One is better than the PlayStation 4 for a number of reasons. Clearly, it's not going to be hardware. We know that, but the hardware is pretty capable. And the differences between the PS4 and the Xbox One is slim at best. It's really not that significant. 30% you're not seeing. 40% you're not seeing. But you do notice it in frames. You do notice it in resolution. And that's mainly where the big differences are. So what it really comes down to is why are Microsoft and why are Sony all of a sudden starting to try to produce these new consoles? And yes, these are rumors. Nothing has come out from either company that said they're making new consoles. But there's just too much talk and there's been no rebuttals. Like, let's just think about that for 1 second. Anytime someone comes out and says something, at least Phil Spencer would say something to the effect that, no, we're not working on a new console. There would be some type of rebuttal. The guys over at Sony would come out and say something like, no, we're not making a new console. Here's a rebuttal. Like, they're not doing that. Every time some type of spec came out that the fans didn't agree with when it came to the NX, guess what happened? Nintendo of America stepped up and made a rebuttal. No, that is not what the console looks like. That is not how it's designed. That's exactly what came out. They refuted those images that were released by people out there on the internet who love to make mock-up designs of consoles and things like that. But you didn't get that from Microsoft. You're not getting that from Sony. They're not denying it. So, we know that the Neo is coming. We don't know what the specs are going to be. The specs supposedly were leaked. And those are still a rumor because they haven't been 100% confirmed by the guys over at Sony. Microsoft, on the other hand, has not said anything. And I've said this before, even in last week's episode, they have not said a word about what it is that they want to talk about, or that even that they were releasing a console. But that still just goes back to my same theory. Phil Spencer earlier in the month stated something like at Game Informer that there will be no new console or no announcements about hardware at E3. And he was right. There will be no hardware announcements about about any new consoles at E3 because now there's a new rumor going around that they're going to have a completely separate show to show off hardware. I said this before. Never take what they say the way they're saying it. Microsoft are the kings of telling you one thing and doing another. There's a rumor happening right now that they're supposed to be having a show dedicated to Xbox One hardware. And then at E3, they'll more than likely show off all the games that they want to show and anything interconnected when it comes to Microsoft and Windows 10 and Xbox. So if they're going to be working on a show dedicated, and I don't know when the show is going to be, it can be a couple of days before, it can be sometime this month. I don't know. They haven't said anything. But I can tell you this, if they do show a new show and it's dedicated, man, I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. I think Microsoft again is gonna have some type of slim console to appease the fans who have been asking for a slim model of the Xbox One for a very long time. But I also think that they are working on new hardware. So let's get to this rumor about 10 teraflops. And if I'm capable of doing this, I will try to show what was said in this rumor, even though everyone is taking it with a grain of salt, even though everyone calls BS on it. I just want to examine what was happening. Now, understand, this came from Eurogamer, Italy. Okay. This was somebody who had reached out to Eurogamer Italy. They, had a conversation with the people over there and supposedly stated that the Xbox One is 5 to 6 times more powerful than the PlayStation Neo. So I just want to jump directly into the actual article itself, just to give you guys a heads up of what transpired there. I'm not sure if I can show it this week because, like I said, for some apparent reason, my camera's not popping up the way I want it to. Let's see if this will work. Let's see. Screen share, Hangouts, live events. It might. Let me see here. No, it's not letting me do it. Okay. So it's not going to let me do it this week. I don't know what's happening with my camera. I'll have to figure it out. But let's read it off. So this anonymous source comes out to Eurogamer Italy, and he says, I can guarantee that the new Xbox One is in pre-production. AMD has signed 3 new agreements for this year and 1 last year. What the past year concerned, this is from Eurogamer Italy. This probably was in Italian. I'm not sure. Google was translating it. But it's saying concerned the tax for the slim model of 1 SoC or SoC. What this year covers 3 big industry. I don't know. I guess he's trying to say that this year covers 3 big manufacturers coming out from AMD. Microsoft, including for the new console, 4 agreements, 3 only for 2016. So there's 3 consoles coming out this year for 2016, 1 next year, but there were 4 agreements for, I guess, 4 deals with AMD. I would assume that that's probably the slim console for Xbox. Because remember, as I stated before, the FCC stated that Microsoft had 2 console SKUs. That kind of just boils into all the rumors that we keep hearing. I mean, after a while, when you hear rumor after rumor after rumor, you have to start to think that some of this stuff is true. Some of this stuff is leaking. You just don't know how. And it's just funny that he says that there's supposed to be 4 deals with AMD, 3 releasing this year. We already know that the NX is coming out in 2017. That can be the PlayStation Neo, and that can be the newer Xbox and the Xbox Slim. That's 2 consoles. Because like I said before, another rumor, Microsoft is dedicating an entire show just to showing hardware. E3 will be about games and obviously features for the console as well. So he goes on and he says, 1 was a definite step forward as a chipset. Still, it has not been exploited even at 80%. And there are still room for improvement to get the most from the current consoles. But talking with the Xbox team developers, I guess he's saying he has noticed they have focused too much on innovation and less on strength. Then I can tell you, even now, that will be a cross between 1 and a Stark PC. If we count the numbers, I mean that everything will be balanced as the current one, but each element will be provided with great power, starting from the system to the integrated HBM DDR4 memory and GPU. There will be the exhaust chip, but for the lazy dev, you can also bet on the computational power without incurring large compromises, the opposite situation to that of the One. Panos Panay is overseeing the project and the aesthetics of the console. I think it will be amazing. Now, he goes on to try to describe some of the chipsets. He says the chip is based on Arctic Islands family of AMD's 14 nanometer FinFET or Polaris 11 Vega. GCN 4.0 in production for this summer will be a custom class x86-x64 and always backwards compatible with either 360 with the One. In fact, the operating system will always be virtualized. Windows 10 Redstone 2 is the core of the operating system of choice. It will be sold at a loss. These 2 years are working almost immediately after the arrival of the One. So basically, he says that they've been working on this console almost immediately after the arrival of the One. Again, what did I say a couple weeks ago on the podcast? That Microsoft had been looking immediately, literally, and it's the truth, literally after they dropped the Xbox One. I remember in 2014, they were looking for a super designer. They were looking for a super designer. And I said that. Now, this is getting crazy. So then he said, I've heard that Spencer and the entire team wants to leave as soon as possible for the one spot he had with the old leadership, as if to mean a start from here is like 0 year for us and for Xbox. They were not kidding. From even the decision to end the production of Xbox 360 to focus on a new model. So it seems, if I can diagnose his English, I'm at least it being converted to English. What he's stating is that Phil Spencer and the team feel like with this new console, they'll be able to start from zero. This seems like a new console. Yes, it will be backwards compatible with the Xbox One, but I think this is the hardware that Phil may have been talking about from the jump. The Xbox One isn't the console that's upgradable. That's, all the thoughts that we had about the Xbox One having an attachment on the side and things like that. No, that's not happening to the Xbox One. The Xbox One is not upgradable. The console that they got coming out may possibly be the console that's upgradable and will be the future design or manufacture of future consoles, probably for the platform as they go upgrade on a min-gen basis. Now, the first paragraph is something that I missed out on. I didn't get a chance to talk about that because this is the one where he gets to talking about power. And one of the things he says is, I've got to read some slides from Microsoft and AMD about the new Xbox. And it is, in effect, a new model, not a remake of the One. They should announce this. They should announce it this year at a separate event from E3 2016, but still a few days before the fair, before basically E3. The announcement will be made. The announcement will be made this year, but the release of the Xbox won't be expected until next spring. To read the roadmap. So basically, he read the roadmap, and that's what he got from it. It will be open to change hardware. I don't know, and this is when you start to question some of these rumors. I remember Phil specifically saying that, specifically saying that the Xbox One would not be the type of console. It's not the Xbox One, but the upgradable hardware of the console would not be a console where you can interchange the parts. Why would they allow people to go into the console to change parts out unless the parts are snappable? Unless these parts are able to be like, adapters that you just plug and play. You take a piece out and you plug it back in. You take this piece out and you plug it back in. Unless it's snappable, I don't see why Microsoft would allow that. Not only to me does that void a warranty, and we all know how manufacturers are about warranties. Please, God forbid you open up your system to clean it, or God forbid you do anything internally to the system, that warranty is void. As soon as you break that seal, that warranty is void. But if they're building a console with interchangeable parts over the decades, I don't know. I don't know what is the design and what is the thought behind this, and why would you allow people to do it? Because as soon as someone messes up, they're going to be the ones responsible for it. And I don't know if you really want to put that in the hands of the consumer. You don't want to put that in the hands of a 13-year-old kid. I just don't think you want to do that. So this is where I'm like, I don't know if this guy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I believe it. It's a rumor. I don't believe it. I'm just saying I don't know if what this guy's saying actually makes sense at this point. He goes on to say it will be open to change hardware. He said, I did not understand it via the upgrade or if they spoke of changes that will operate on the fly before the release. It will be extremely powerful from the start. he says he thinks 5 to 6 times more powerful than the PS4 Neo. Now, this is based on the rumored leak specs. I know a lot of people say, what do you mean more powerful than the Neo? No one knows what the Neo is because Sony has never come out and said anything. But based on the leak specs, he's saying that it's supposed to be 5 to 6 times more powerful than the PS4 Neo. And then he says, then something in the order of over 10 teraflops or so. Let me explain something to you about 10 teraflops. The processing, first of all, there's not a chip on the market right now that's taking 10 teraflops currently, at least to my knowledge. I think, you know, I don't know, maybe these new cars are capable of doing it, but, you know, the ones that AMD have that haven't been released yet. But overall, 10 teraflops is an insane number. That is an insane number of processing power, okay? We're talking about, you look at the Xbox One right now, right? That thing doesn't even have a GPU that's anywhere near what they're talking about. Not even 4 teraflops. Not even 4 teraflops, 3 teraflops. Nowhere near that, right? They got a fan in that bad boy that's huge. Most of the console is designed around that fan because they just did not want a disastrous thing that happened like Red Ring of Death with the 360. So you're telling me that you're going to put 10 teraflops in another box? That the fan, you might as well put an air conditioner in the Xbox if that's the case. It doesn't make any sense. 10 teraflops? That's insane. That is an insane amount of processing power. GPU is going to be damn near brand new, selling it at a loss. What are you talking about right now? What are we looking at price-wise? Anything above 6, not purchasable. No console gamer buys that. That is talking. Now, let's just take it back a notch. Let's take it back a notch. Let's say Microsoft goes with this Elite line, because I've said this before. They sound like they've been doing this. They like got a lot of great feedback from people about the Elite controller. The Elite controller was a premium device. And they asked people, do you like premium devices? And a lot of people said, yes, they love premium devices. And when it came to the Elite controller, purchasing the Elite controller was a simple task. That thing sold out in minutes. Like it was nothing. It sold out in seconds. But we're talking about hardware. I already said that I think they should make an Elite line, an Elite mouse and keyboard for the people who get a chance to play mouse and keyboard on the Xbox One, an Elite headset to go with the Elite controller. You know, something in the same range as Astro A50s or, you know, the Turtle Beach X500s or 800s or whatever it is out there for $250, $200, $300. People will buy those things. I would buy those things. I have no problem with that because when I game, I want to have the best quality and the best experience as much as possible. I know a lot of times money doesn't make anything premium, like price. There's a lot of things you can get for cheap that do very, very well and extremely well. But a lot of times when you pay for certain things, and this is the truth, when you pay for certain things, you really, really get your money's worth sometimes. Not sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes. So for me, I'm saying to myself, do they come out with this Elite console? You know, like in a real Elite, the Xbox Elite. Not the Xbox One Elite, but the Xbox Elite. Okay? When you talk about the Xbox Elite, one second, guys. Give me half a second. Okay, I'm back. So do they make a premium console? Do they turn around and take this loss? Let's say, for example, Microsoft comes out, they say, you know what, we're going to sell the console for $500. We're going to take a $500 to $600 hit, right? Let's say that the Neo comes out. The Neo is exactly what we saw with the specs that they shown in the rumor. And the NX is nowhere near that because Nintendo, the owner himself, the president of Nintendo himself, said that this console they will make an immediate profit on. You know, and what's crazy about that, and I'll get into Nintendo in a second because that says a lot to me. Having an immediate profit on a console does not bode well for Power. That is the absolute truth. That is the absolute truth. No console that comes out that is plenty powerful and plenty up to date immediately makes money back on this release. And that tells you something. That tells you a lot. But let's just say Xbox comes out with this premium hardware, right? And they come out with this premium hardware and they sell it for $500. The Neo comes out as $400, you know, and the NX comes out as $400 or $300. The Xbox One is now officially the most powerful. Not the, I keep saying Xbox One. I'm so stuck on Xbox One. The so-called quote unquote Xbox Elite Premium console comes out and it sells along with the PS4, or shall I say, against the PS4 and against the NX. How does the community respond? How do the fans respond to that? Do they go out and spend $500 after spending $400 or $500 again on the previous Xbox console? And another thing about that is that they have to, the Kinect has to be backwards compatible. You cannot expect us to go out and buy a new Kinect. The Kinect needs to work in the newer hardware. For all the fans out there that have a Kinect, it needs to be able to work with the newer hardware. There is no excuses about that. If they don't make that work with the newer hardware, it's a failure. That is a failure on their part, and it's a failure in design, because you have all these people who have the Kinect and are so used to voice commands and so used to using it to not include it and not have it at least be backwards compatible and it just pop right in to the console and work the way it worked on the Xbox One would be a travesty. It would be an absolute travesty. So, you know, I look back at it and I'm saying to myself, do they come out with a premium console? And it goes back to what I said before. And when I spoke to who I spoke to, if they drop a console and it was $500, I would buy it. 10 teraflops doesn't seem realistic. The reason why I'm saying it doesn't seem realistic is because the difference between a console and a PC is that in a PC, you have housings that you can build that's acceptable. PCs can stand up. PCs are designed to be that way, to be large enough and have large casings that expand out air and things like that. Consoles aren't like that. That's not the point of a console. You can never build a console the size of a PC to expand the amount of heat 10 teraflops will put out into a console. The only way this works is it's left the processing power. Somehow they designed the chip and somehow they designed the processing power to where it worked, where the heat dissipation just was not as hot as we all expected to be. And, you know, it just really goes to Microsoft then putting in a newer CPU, a newer GPU. You know, I think they go with 5 teraflops. I don't think they do 10. You know, if the Neo is 4, I think they go with at least a teraflop higher. Whatever Microsoft is trying to do, I just feel like they're not going to put themselves in a position that they've been in this generation. And the Xbox One is an amazing console. It's a great console. I love it. I love the games on it. But let's just keep it real. Let's be honest here. They're not going to put themselves in the position that they put themselves in this generation by going cheap. It had nothing to do with Sony. It did it. And, you know, the Xbox One, they just went cheap. And they didn't want to pick up the GDDR5, and they went with an alternate route. And though that's great, it's just not enough to get what they want out of it. It is not to say the console can't hit 1080p, but realistically, when you look at everything that they've been putting out and you look at some of the engines that's been, you know, redesigned and upgraded to work with the hardware, it's just easier to do it with what Sony's doing compared to what Microsoft is doing. It takes a lot longer to get, you know, the resolution and get the frames that, you know, the exclusives may have. And then third parties don't have time for that. And third parties is what move units, because that's just how it was with 360, and that's how it is now with PS4. Exclusives sell consoles without question, but third party for casuals, man, if the games run best on this, because there's more third party games out there than there are first party, then that's where people will go. So now we put Microsoft back in a position of being the #1 platform out there all the games that come out on this thing is absolutely, with 10 teraflops, you're probably doing 4K gaming. This doesn't even sound real. Just throw it out the window. Throw it out the window right now. Just throw it. Just get rid of this rumor right now. Throw it out the window. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. You know, it sounds good. It really does. When you read some of the later comments, it actually sounds legit. It actually sounds kind of good. If you're an Xbox fan, okay, and you're not a PlayStation guy, if you're a PlayStation guy, you're not following Xbox, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But if you're an Xbox fan and you've been following Xbox and you know what's happening with Xbox, and you know what's happening with all the rumors that I've spoken about on occasion and multiple times before, you'll know those later parts, those sound very, very true and very realistic. I've not heard of one new manufacturer coming out with a console. If you're going to announce a console, like say you're Amazon or you're Apple, you come out with a console, you would tell people right off the rip, I'm coming out with a console, we'll be at so-and-so E3 event, or we'll have our own show. And you work with AMD, that would be out there. You don't just come out with a console and just drop it and expect people to get it. That's not how it works, especially a new console. So to sit up here, knowing that the FCC had reported that Microsoft had 2 new SKUs for their Xbox platform, turn around and have this guy come out and say that AMD has signed a contract for 4 platforms, 3 releasing this year, 1 releasing next year. It sounds feasible. A redesigned Xbox One chip, smaller, sleeker to make it fit into the Xbox Slim. This newer design chip that they're coming out with, put into the Xbox Elite console, 1 for the Neo, and then 1 for the NX in 2017. But the 10 teraflops thing just doesn't seem realistic, It just doesn't seem realistic. So I don't know, man, that a console like that, the type of hit they would have to take, do they take that hit? They've already taken a hit for the last 3 years. Maybe they wipe the slate clean and they don't disregard the 20 million people. They continue to put out consoles for it, but you stop mass production on the 360, which means you can now begin production on a newer console, which is more than likely what they're going to be doing with this upgrade. And on top of that, everything's backwards and forwards compatible with Windows and the whole UWP situation. But the question is, what's in the hardware? We may find out more about that either later this month or early in June. I'm excited. I can't wait to go, man. I'm super hyped. I am so hyped. It makes no sense how hype I am to go to this E3. And I swear to you, if you're not watching it, I don't care if you're at work, you better tune into the Twitter feed for Tick, okay? Because I am going to be posting everything I can. If I can find out how to get Periscope on my Windows phone, I will do it. I will Periscope everything. You know what I'm saying? But if I can, I'll tweet out as much as I can to the public. But this is a crazy situation, A lot of people blowing it off. They don't believe it. They're laughing at it. I'm going to tell you right now, if Microsoft comes out with this, oh my God, the faces. The faces. The amount of people that is going to be so bitter. Oh, it's going to look like they've been sucking on lemons. They're going to be so bitter. It's going to be so bad. It's going to be a lot of people going to have a bad day. A bad day. It's ironic. It really is. And it's a crazy situation. The Xbox fans will then suddenly be in power. The whole dynamic of, it's not about graphics, it's not about resolution, it's about games. That dynamic will instantly change. That dynamic will change so fast. It makes no sense. I'm telling you, it's gonna change so fast. The people who may have jumped to PS4 will then eventually probably jump back to Xbox, because a lot of fans left Xbox and went to PS4. They probably was original PS2 games, PS2 fans, but at the end of the day, they don't have any loyalty to a console. That's clear. So, we'll see what happens, man. It's an amazing trip. It's an amazing situation that is going to be presented to us. A lot of people's not fans of new consoles and new hardware, but every week I'm getting new content. Every week I'm getting something new, or I'm learning something new on the Xbox, and this is just getting crazier and crazier. And it's coming out for all manufacturers and all consoles. But it's what's buzzing, man. This is what's buzzing. This is the hottest news right now on the market, and it's just I'm like speechless because the rumors out of control. Well, give me 1 second. Let me take care of my kid. Be right back.
Wow!
Hush.
Look at the blood.
Apologies, everyone. Oh, glad you stayed with me, though. I really appreciate that. So, again, man, it all goes back down to what is really going to be happening. And we really won't know that until E3. We could take everything with a grain of salt, or we can just call out all these rumors and things like that. But it's just a crazy situation. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can guarantee you, whatever Microsoft produces, they're going to do their damnedest to make the most powerful console they can put out at a reasonable price. I can tell you that much. And that was noted by somebody when I spoke to them. So I can't wait for E3. So listen, big news coming out of Nintendo. I know I don't really talk about Nintendo that often, but I just want to harp on them for a second because this is just driving me crazy. I'm not understanding what's happening. Nintendo had some rumor that came out, and it just goes right back down to these consoles. And I said this before with Nintendo, they're always trying to innovate. They're always trying to do things that's not necessary. It's like it's not necessary. I don't understand why they try to do these things. And I just want Nintendo to get back to being Nintendo. I don't know why they want to try to do these things, but they do, and it's just weird. It's funny that they're always trying to attempt these things. And I'm saying to myself, you have PlayStation and Xbox doing Blu-ray. Blu-ray is big, that's the format now. So why the hell am I hearing rumors that that Nintendo may go back to cartridges? What? What? Cartridges? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Are you serious right now? That's how I'm feeling. My hopes and my high for the NX was up there because I've been looking for a second platform, and it's it's a rumor. It's not to say that it's true. I'm pretty sure that Microsoft, I keep saying Microsoft. I'm pretty sure that Nintendo will figure out something, but Nintendo's notorious for this. They're notorious for this. They're notorious for their own type of format, their own type of disc format. They're notorious for their own type of control format. They like always trying to innovate, and it just kind of turns the hardcore gamer off. It just does. It really does. It kind of turns the hardcore gamer off. And I'm just kind of like, I'm weirded out by it. I don't want to stay on it too long, but I just find it just weird, man, that they would try to come out with this type of device and, talk about it as if, they haven't talked about it at all. Let me not say that. But it's just weird that they always come out with these devices or these rumored devices, and it's just mind-boggling that they just don't stick to an original plan. Like not to say they have to be like the Xbox or the PlayStation, but to actually come out and do something with their platform and make it available. Like, I guess you could say, make it feasible for everyone to play and have access to. Cartridges, that eliminates Blu-ray movies. Okay. Well, why would you have a disc? Why would you have a disc tray and have a cartridge slot? Unless they're doing something similar to what the what format was that? The PSP that had like these discs that was in like a plastic case, and they would spin and be read through a certain area or something like that. Unless they do something like that, which is kind of weird in my opinion, doing it now. But I just find it ironic, man. Like, what? Like, every time you get hyped for something coming out of that company, they always do something that just makes you like, it just makes you say, what the like, what? And the Nintendo faithful, man, they eat that up. They eat it up like it's nothing. But the president of Nintendo wants to gain respect back, man. He wants to gain respect back. I think Microsoft also wants to gain some respect back. I think that's why they're coming out with these newer consoles. Sony is saying that they're doing it because, they have PlayStation VR, which, more than likely would be a big, big thing. They've invested a lot of money in VR. I can tell you this. They've invested a lot of money in a lot of different things. They invested money in PSVR. They invested money in Gaikai. They invested money in the PlayStation 4 device. And now they're investing money in this rumored Neo device. And, it's crazy. So my whole thing is I don't know, have they really gone out to try to invest in any games? And it's just not saying that they haven't, but they just haven't done it the way they did with PS3. They haven't done it the way they did it with PS2. Microsoft seems to be doing just that, trying to invest money in games, but they're losing studios. Everybody has issues, and it's just a crazy situation all around for the big three manufacturers. 1 second, please. I'll be right back. So it's just weird, man. It's a weird situation with these manufacturers and stuff. But I'm not a fan of this cartridge thing. I'm really not. I don't, again, it's a rumor. This is what this show is about. This is the rumor show. I just want to talk about a few rumors that recently came out, and why I'm sitting up there just confused, like, why do these companies always go the opposite direction of what the true fans want? I think companies don't recognize how important hardcore fans are. I think that was the failure of the PS3. I think that was the failure of the Xbox One. I think that's the failure of what what the NX may be if they keep coming out with these weird rumors and these weird images, in that the hardcore gamer truly just wants to play games, but they also just want to be able to play it in a situation or in a way that's comfortable to them. That's comfortable to them. Be able to pick up controller and make it feel natural. Hop on a console and make it feel natural. Look at games and they all look natural. That's what you want. The second you start intervening and start putting things in front of a hardcore gamer and it's just throws them off, it's not that they won't learn it. That's not what I'm saying. But then you just get people who just disagree with the direction that is going. Hardcore gamers didn't want the wands and stuff like that, the move that PS put out. They didn't want the Kinect. They didn't want the Wii U. The casuals bought Wii U. Not Wii U, I'm sorry, the Wii. The casuals bought the Wii. The Wii U hasn't taken off because it doesn't have third-party support, but they also have a big-ass screen in the center of their controller. So many Pro controllers were bought for the Wii U over that screen. It says a lot. So I'm really hoping that, the rumor's fake. I'm hoping that is not true. I really want to see these three consoles compete head-to-head and things like that. And everybody has an opportunity to start fresh. And that's what's going to happen. I just feel like this is like Generation 9 dropping. Be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the next PlayStation console is a new console as well. I'm officially with Xbox. This console coming out is a brand new console. I don't think it's an Xbox One. Phil even said he does not want to call an Xbox One like Xbox 1.5. That is something that he said right off the rip. That is not his MO. He doesn't agree with that. He also stated that if he did upgrade the console, he would upgrade it substantially. It falls in line with 10 teraflops. I'm just trying to figure out how they do it. I've always been a fan of the Xbox having the power brick outside of the console. Never been a fan of like added heat in the console. A lot of people don't like the power brick. I have no problems with it. People complain about the power brick. It's on the floor, bro. Put it on the floor. Put it behind your TV. Put it somewhere. Just don't put it on the carpet. But put it somewhere out of sight. But it's not that hard. It's not that hard, man. Unless you live in Japan, where your room is about 6 feet wide and is 6 feet high, or something like that. It's really not difficult to hide the power brick. So I just think that people really just nitpick. And when you nitpick, you miss out on some really great stuff. Sony has their thing inside the hardware. I don't know if they'll do that with the Neo when everything's being upclocked, supposedly. But if they do come out with a new console and they build it correctly or they build it the way they think it will work, more than likely they'll do the same thing and have that inside the console. I think the Xbox is smart to continue to leave that brick outside of the console. Being that the 360 was notorious for overheating and having the whole red ring thing, I would just continue to reassure people that they don't have to worry about heat. But this 10 teraflops thing is a doozy. And again, I don't know how serious it is. I don't think it is, but it's crazy. You'd be surprised how many people care about the power supply. You would be surprised. A lot of people. I say this all the time. I talk to people all the time, man. I'm a very talkative person. As you know, I could do an entire show for almost 2 hours and just be talking. But when I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people just they gripe about the smallest things. But you'd be surprised how many of them do it. People talk about the power brick. People talk about the design of the Xbox. People griped about how it couldn't stand on its side. Just the littlest things. To find anything negative to talk about the console. And I know you can sit up here and say, well, that's just what they're doing. They'll find anything to do. It doesn't matter. But the reality of it is that the less things you have to complain about, the less things you can find to talk about to try to bash the console. I think Microsoft is trying to fix that same issue right now with this new Xbox that they got coming out. And then when you really think about it, damn, it falls in line. Like the more I think about what Phil said, the more I'm starting to be like, damn, this rumor almost lines up with what he said, minus the 10 teraflops. Substantial power. They're going to put a lot of power in the console. Phil's already said that. Whatever Xbox come out, is going to be a monster machine. It's going to be a monster machine. Okay, right? They're not going to present a new console at E3. It's not going to be at E3. They're going to have a separate show, just like they had a separate show for the Xbox One. About a couple of weeks before E3, they announced the Xbox One, and then they made the entire show about games and games going on the Xbox One. I see no difference. I see that a couple of weeks before E3, maybe the first week of June, they show off new hardware, or a couple of days before E3, they show off new hardware, and then the next day or the next week, E3 comes and they show all the games coming out for Xbox One, which is supposed to be some new announcements, some new IPs coming out this year for 2016, by the way. There will be some new IP announcements, which is great. I can't wait, as well as show off some games that we've all been looking forward to, like Recore and Sea of Thieves, and I'm more than likely Scalebound as well. I can't wait for that. But on top of that, they're also going to be talking about probably what features we'll be getting and things like that. And that will take up the majority of E3. Gamescom will then follow with the future, and they'll probably show off more future titles that's coming out in 2017. And that does great for Europe because they really need to make a big push in Europe. They need a bigger Europe presence out there in like the eastern part of Europe as much as possible, as well as make a big push and make a big impression with Asia, you know, just to get back, man. They have to get back. You know, there's nothing wrong with having 20 million consoles out there. You're outpacing the Xbox 360. And again, like I said, man, there's something that they know that this generation for all three console manufacturers that just did not go the way they wanted it to. You can say what you will about PlayStation 4 having 36 million consoles and outpacing the PS2 and the PS3 and the 360, but there's just something that besides PSVR that they're saying to themselves, hey, we need to produce a newer console. And if it's just an upgrade for PSVR, then it was PSVR. But the Xbox One and the Nintendo console, they're not, I'm not Xbox One, the Microsoft and Nintendo console, they're not taking that approach. They're doing something completely different. They are dropping new hardware. And I believe the Xbox One is going to be new hardware. It will be the console that Phil originally spoke about. I keep saying Xbox One. The Xbox Elite is what I'm calling it because it's the premium console, like a premium controller. That will be the console that Phil was talking about when it came to modular and being upgradable and doing it every mid-generation. But I think this Xbox One is something they're trying to get out of. So we'll see what happens with that. It's disappointing. I know a lot of fans will be disappointed with that. But at the end of the day, man, listen, at the end of the day, Microsoft was trying to make moves. Could you imagine a console that played both Xbox and PC games? How crazy would that be? Built-in Windows 10, you can play all the Xbox games and you can play the PC games. Remember that Steam rumor? That Steam rumor still hasn't come out yet. Who's to say it won't happen at E3? Now you can also play Steam on the newer Xbox version, on the new Xbox Elite console. Wow. How big would that be? That would be an amazing thing. You just double the install base. Every game that comes out for Windows 10 or that came out for PC that's also available on Windows 10, you'll be able to play. You have the power built behind it to play those games. And then you have all the Xbox One exclusives on top of it. Man, that would be crazy. That's a crazy thought. That's a crazy thought when you think about it. You have DX12, you got cloud, everything works the way they want it to. They have the RAM setup that they want. They have the GPU and the CPU that they want. Everything that they want, they can do and start from scratch with this newer version or this newer console that they have coming out sometime next year or sometime later in the year. That we don't know yet. That's not confirmed. But we'll find out, man. I'm excited. I can't wait. So Watch Dogs rumor came out recently. And, you know, Watch Dogs, to me, a lot of people hated Watch Dogs. I liked Watch Dogs. I did find it I did think it was like Assassin's Creed meets Grand Theft Auto in a way, because it was like, go to this tower, unlock this tower. Okay, all these new missions pop up, but guess what? They're all the same mission. You know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, you unlock the tower, you open everything up, and then you walk in and you come down and you open a map and you look at the mini map, but it's like, take out this gang boss over here, deliver this car over here, jack this car over here, listen to this phone conversation over here. And then that's what you did the whole entire game. And it got to the point to where I didn't even want to play the game because I'm a completionist type. So being that I'm a completionist type, I like to go out and actually complete every single mission. I like to go out and complete every single mission. So being that I like to go out and I like to go out and complete every single mission. If it gets boring to me over time and I can't do it, then it's just something that I won't do. And it made me lose interest in the game overall. And that was disappointing because I was really into the game early on. I thought it was different. I thought it was innovative, but it just all turned out to be not what it was in the long run. So now they're coming out supposedly leaked with Watch Dogs 2. I don't think anybody asked for this game. I don't think anybody asked for this game. I really don't. You know, we've been getting on Ubisoft for weeks and for months, just talking about how everything that they've put out has not lived up to what they initially showed. One sec. Everything they put out has not lived up to what they originally showed. And with them not, having put out certain games and live up to what they showed when it came to these tech demos, that's basically what they were. People have been disappointed with Ubisoft until The Division. Now, The Division is starting to disappoint people. And that's very sad because I was a big fan of The Division when it came out. I gave it high scores, high reviews. I thought it was a must-play game, and it's just kind of gone downhill. My understanding is this next update is supposed to change a lot of things. We'll see what happens. I don't know. But I think if they don't fix this next update, they failed. And that's sad because I thought the game was a really good game. They just could not keep up with the content. When people play MMOs like that, MMOs like Destiny, MMOs like The Division, people run through those games. They're shooters, they're RPGs. The missions aren't extremely long. It doesn't take much to level up. And when you get in groups and you find ways to exploit a boss or you find ways to beat a certain mission, and you guys are all teamed up and you're doing it consistently and you're just getting good gear, it becomes boring. And I think, I recently read that they lost 80% of their install base on PC. That is an insane number. 80% of the install base on PC has abandoned the game. Wow. That is something. That is something that's completely unexpected. They have a long way to go. So Ubisoft is showing off, not showing off, but it leaked that there's a new protagonist for Watch Dogs 2. I don't know where it takes place. I wonder if it'll continue to take place in Chicago or LA. It would be cool if they did something in LA. It's not often that we get games in LA. So I would love to see something like that. But this protagonist may be a Black American character. And supposedly the voice actor is a Black American character. And that's great for diversity. And I hope that they're not doing it for the sake of diversity. I think that's one of the sad things when it comes to games, which reminds me of something that Cliffy B said recently. Guys who know who Cliffy B is, or you don't know who Cliffy B is, that is Cliff Bleszinski, who was one of the main executive producers and creators of Gears of War franchise that is now on the Xbox One and owned by Microsoft. And that was when he was with Epic. He said that he loves games that, have a lot of diversity, and that, games, when it comes to games and it comes to teams, that games should look like the UN and things. But I also have to say that I don't think that makes a game great. Just because you have a white guy, a black guy, an Asian guy, and a Latino guy does not make a game great. Sure, it's great for diversity, but that doesn't make a game great. I think a character's personality makes a game great. The skin color matters only because of the simple fact that there's so many games out there that may not have people of color in the games. I'm not trying to make this a racial debate at all or a racial thing at all. Just saying that I think that a lot of people has been getting kind of upset about the newer character for Watch Dogs possibly being a Black character. I don't know where they pulled that from. I look at the guy, he doesn't seem black to me. It could be a white guy. He just got dark, it's dark lighting. It's not like you don't have white guys that have darker skin and things like that. But it's just a weird facet of how, trying to make games and trying to make characters appeal on purpose, I think is a mistake. That's why I'm really interested in the Mafia 3 game. The Mafia 3 game has me really, really hyped, really interested in seeing what they did with the character, why it made sense, the location that they chose, I think makes sense. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. I really can't. And we debated on this as Tick Podcast sometime, I think last year. We spoke about this and stuff like that. But Watch Dogs 2, man, I don't know if it's going to sell. I don't know. The first one did okay, but it had a big drop off. And the fact that it had such a big drop off, I just think people felt that it was repetitive. Now you can make up for those mistakes. That's without question. You can make up for those mistakes and you can fix it. But when people look at that type of game, they always compare it to Grand Theft Auto. And when you compare it to Grand Theft Auto, nothing competes with Grand Theft Auto. Nothing in the eyes of most gamers competes with Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is in a class by itself. It's almost like when you're comparing a sci-fi shooter, you compare it to Halo. If you're comparing a third-person action-adventure game, you're comparing it to Uncharted or Tomb Raider. When it comes to horror games, usually back in the day, it used to be Resident Evil or something like Silent Hill back in the day that were very, very into the whole survival horror aspect. Nowadays, it's different. But I think that in its own right, it has the capability of becoming its own game and its own identity. That's what Saints Row did. When Saints Row first came out, it was almost like it was a Grand Theft Auto knockoff. A lot of people prefer Saints Row, the original Saints Row, to Grand Theft Auto 4, I think. And that's when it came out around that time. And Saints Row was a great game. I remember the handling was not as good as Grand Theft Auto, but the graphics were impressive. And when you shot a car, like when you shot the car, it wasn't like the window shattered. Like you could see one bullet hole per bullet going to each window. And I was really impressed with that. But over the years, Saints Row just got so goofy. It literally went from being something so realistic and so similar to Grand Theft Auto that it just became a caricature of itself. And now it's kind of like a joke of a game. And it's sad to see that happen. But you know what? They made their identity, and some of those Saints Row games sold extremely well. Like Saints Row 3, then you have like the whole Saints Row Battle Hell. They just took a different approach and made their own identity because they couldn't compete with Grand Theft Auto. So I don't know if Watch Dogs is able to do that. Finally get their own identity, because in the end, we're always going to compare it to Assassin's Creed. We're always going to compare it to Grand Theft Auto. But it doesn't really have an identity for itself. I don't think it established that with the first game. So the second game is going to be a crazy mix, I hope. I hope that they don't have repetitive missions. If the character is a Black American, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Or a Black character. I don't have a problem with that. I would hope that the story coincides with it and they have a great voice actor for it, because I hate things when things don't seem authentic. It doesn't seem realistic. Doesn't matter if the voice actor is Black or white, as long as they're authentic. I said this before when the whole controversy happened with Uncharted 4 and the Nadine situation. Doesn't matter. If she's from South Africa and she sounds South African and she fits the role, that's all that matters. Okay? Hey, if there's not enough, if people are complaining about voice acting roles and they're of a different race and they weren't chosen, then you can't always blame race, man. Sometimes you just can't always blame it. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't always blame it. She just felt the role, and she's like, I can't remember the woman's name, but I know that she's a prominent voice actor in the industry. It's almost like you're going to just pass up on a Brad Pitt or a Will Smith or a Tom Cruise for, not a B-list actor, but somebody who's up and coming. That this up and coming star is going to net you $300-400 million, and this guy may not. So that's really what it is in the end. It's a tough act, man. It's a tough act, but we'll see what happens. So that's it for our show this week, man. I really appreciate everybody stopping out. Just want to discuss some of the rumors that had came out when it came to the Xbox, Nintendo, and their cartridge situation. Please, God, don't let them put out no cartridges. Just ridiculous. And of course, Watchdogs and the Watchdog character that had leaked. I hope Watchdog turns out to be a good game because I would pick it up again if it's good. I actually like the whole tech angle. I just felt that the side missions was just the same missions over and over. It was super repetitive, and I just couldn't get into it. They want to go back to Chicago, that's fine. I would prefer LA, Atlanta, New York, Texas, Dallas, someplace, just another major city. Houston, just another major city, another tech advanced city would be great if they did that. And of course, we talked about the Xbox One and not the Xbox One. We talked about the Xbox One. We talked about the Xbox Elite, the Xbox One being a slimmer version in this newer console that's supposed to be a new Xbox console, possibly being released next year. And it's supposedly having 10 teraflops. I don't believe that. I think it'll probably be closer to 5 teraflops. If the Neo was 4, it may be 5, it may be 6. I don't know. I'm speculating at this point, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, man, that's it. Again, I'll be back next week every Wednesday at 9 p.m. I'll try to get on earlier, maybe like around 8 o'clock. I would definitely try to get on 8 o'clock this week. It just becomes a little bit difficult. I hate to stop in the middle of a show. I really do. It's so frustrating to stop in the middle of a show. It's the reason why I try to record my shows and then upload them, then do it live, because I always have interference and stuff like that. So you guys let me know, man. Do you prefer the live shows, being in the chat, talking with people and answering questions, or do you prefer to just the old school way that we used to do it, upload the show, and I answer your questions in chat? Appreciate everybody for stopping in, and I definitely appreciate everybody for their comments and well wishes on the whole Tick Network and the diversity and things that we're trying to bring to the channel and what we're doing with our website. So I'm very grateful for everyone. Thanks once again. And now let's begin the after party. So if you have any questions, go ahead, leave them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them based on a lot of the news and a lot of things that came out lately and things that I've heard and people I've spoken to. And let's get it in. Buffalo Bill, listen, man, I'm going to keep it real with you. My whole fan base wants me to block you. The entire chat hates you. You need to stop harassing people and coming on my channel disrespecting Xbox, man. Okay? You're causing problems. I don't have a problem chatting with you, man. But hey, it's all about the fans, man. I gotta listen to the fans, man. So you gotta get it together. We're gonna have to have you suspended from the Tick Network. Oh man. Okay. Let's see here. I'm sure you are, but still, I mean, everybody's not going to agree with it, and doing it every week is kind of annoying to some people. So, just telling you, man, the fans is where it's at. I love you as an individual, but if I got 30 people hitting me up, man, I ain't trying to lose 30 people. All right. Exactly. Don't need console wars here, man. We're just gamers. We love the game. We love Xbox, and we love talking about games. Appreciate it. So do we have any questions this week, guys, before I head out of here? All right. Thomas White asks, do you think Microsoft releases before year end? Do you think Microsoft releases before year end, or do they release in 2017 like the new rumors that have popped up? I think if they are smart, they release in 2017, spring of 2017, right around when the NX comes out. I think the reason why you do that is because there's multiple reasons. One, any games you got coming out now and any games you got coming out this year, you want to make sure that you're not rushing like they did with Quantum Break to get it on Windows 10. Make sure that those games port over to the newer upgradable hardware and it works great. That is going to be so big. Taking time out to get games like Gears of War 4. Could you imagine? Let's just say, for example, this is just for example, people. Let's just say Microsoft does produce a console by some miracle with 10 teraflops in it. the latest GPU, the newest, brand newest GPU straight out of AMD, the newest CPU straight out of AMD, and Gears of War has ultra textures, runs at 4K at 90 frames per second. You know, let's just think about that for 1 second. That game comes out and they say, hey, you can play Gears on the new Xbox Elite at 4K 90 frames per second. People would trade their consoles in so fast. They would trade them in immediately. You know, third parties will go crazy with that kind of power. There would be such a significant difference. The only problem is that when you play multiplayer, you have to come down to the lower level. You can't pump out a game at 90 frames per second in multiplayer and play the game at 60 frames per second on the Xbox One, especially if games are supposed to be integrated together. So they have to be able to make sure that the games work together in a multiplayer space. But single players, all bets are off, bro. Do you? Do you, Microsoft? All bets are off. And I could bet you they would do that for Scalebound. They would do that for Recore. They would do that for Forza. You think Forza Apex? Think about it. Forza Apex is in 4K for PC. Imagine now Forza in 4K for Xbox, the newer Xbox. Man, people would go crazy for that. And if you sell it for 500 at a loss, at a massive loss, because that's what it would be. It would be a massive loss because you're banking on all these games being sold. You know, all of these people making upgrades. That's what you'll be banking on. But it puts Microsoft in a position to be the third-party king again. That's what made them so successful. I had somebody tell me that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that, you know, they if they go third-party again, they're not going to do anything because they don't have exclusives and their games aren't appealing enough. They're not appealing to who? Who they're not appealing to? They appeal to a ton of people. On 360, they appeal to millions of people. So many people have 360. So many people have PlayStation. But Halos and Gears and all those games sold extremely well. But there's a difference. You know, there's not as many people on the console this generation compared to the PS4 and compared to last generation. And also last generation, you got to remember that console generation lasted 10 years. It lasted 10 years. So when the game came out, you had a 40, 50, 60 million people that would buy the game. That wound up adding up to 2, 3, 4 million per exclusive. You know? So I think that Microsoft comes out and they become the lead in third-party gaming. Like, you know, everything gets produced on the newer Xbox, and then it trickles down to the Neo, then to the NX, then to the PS4, then the Xbox One, and then the Wii U. Then, well, Wii U don't get third-party support, so let's just scratch that. But, you know, then I think people look at the Xbox differently, and they go back to the Xbox. You know, the people who weren't getting an Xbox, they're not going to get an Xbox regardless. But like I said before, it wasn't that Sony stole Xbox fans. You know, initially, Xbox stole Sony fans. That's what happened. And those people became Xbox fans. And then what happened was Microsoft lost those fans because those fans don't have loyalty. Clearly, they don't. They were not waiting for the PS3 to drop. They purchased the Xbox 360, and 360 took half of that mind share. 80 million consoles sold, 80 million consoles for PS3. And on the Xbox One, they lost those people. You know, whatever Don Matrick and Ballmer were trying to do, and they were talking to the casuals, they lost that base. They lost those hardcore gamers. And those gamers left, and they went over. And then you just had all this talk at the time about spying and, you know, stuff. And then you add weak hardware and, you know, word of mouth, social media, so many fiascos. It just was a lot, man. It just was a lot. One thing that Buffalo Bill said a while ago, and it's weird that I'm actually quoting him, was that, you know, he stated that the Xbox One, the name itself just has a negative stigma. I think it's smart that Microsoft is, if they come out with a new console, that they come out with a new Xbox with a new name. You know, it could be Xbox Elite, it could be Xbox Infinity, it could be Xbox 10, but it just has something that differentiates itself from the Xbox One and kind of boasts its power. whatever they're producing, that it boasts its power, and that this console is no joke. And this is the premier console for Xbox currently. Let's see. And also, do I think it released next year? Yeah, like I said, I think it released next year. Courtney Spence asks, do you think Microsoft could have a 5 teraflop box, an external GPU, firework? They could maybe hit 20 teraflops then. The problem, here's the problem that you guys keep getting. I'm sorry, guys. Give me half a second. Calm down. All right. Let's see. Where was I? Yeah. And so for 20 teraflops, the problem is that, again, you're pushing processing power. Processing, it heats up. You guys have to remember that these aren't PCs. These aren't giant boxes that can dissipate heat. They're dissipating heat, but not at that level. You will burn your chips. You think Red Ring of Death was a problem? You put 20 teraflops in any console right now, that thing will melt, and you will not play any games the first day it releases. You're just not going to be able to build a console in the way a console is usually designed that can dissipate that type of heat, let alone have a fan or a cooling system. You would have to have an amazingly large cooling system to do that for the amount of computation that these games run. You just would. 20 teraflops is not realistic. 10 teraflops is barely realistic. I would say 5, 6, 7, 8, but 10, I don't know about 10. I don't. 20 is definitely not realistic. That's just, it's not. I don't see that happening. Diarette says end of 2017, so they have the whole holiday season to end to themselves and are not competing with Nintendo or Sony. I don't know, man. That's a long time. An entire year. I mean, that would be amazing because you could always sit and watch and make changes. But then you're giving up a year to Neo, and you're giving up a good quarter of a year to NX. And NX comes out and it's more powerful than the Xbox One. I don't know if Microsoft, it's almost like what PlayStation did. PlayStation already's in a lead. They already have a lead. They already have the fan base. So then to turn around and give them another year with better hardware, that's tough. I don't know if Microsoft can make that up. There's not enough Microsoft fans, loyalists worldwide. Germany, no one buys Xboxes. No one. France, nobody's buying Xbox. Spain, nobody's buying Xbox. America, the UK, Brazil, Australia, yeah, sure. There's a lot of Xbox people. South America, Canada, yeah, definitely. But we're talking about the rest of the world. Japan, nobody's buying Xbox. Xbox hasn't even broke. God honest truth. Xbox has not even broken 100,000 consoles sold in Japan. 100,000. Didn't even break it. Been out for like 2 years now, 3 years now. Didn't even break it. That's how serious it is in Japan. They're not picking up the Xbox One. And I don't know if they're going to. So I just don't see it happening.
Sorry, Daddy.
Okay. Don't worry.
Come on.
So, at the end of the day, I don't know if Microsoft could afford that amount of time. They really need to be able to just let the console come out around the NX. That's only a few months after the Neo, which will probably drop in November or October if it comes out this year. They all can come out in spring. We don't know. We don't know. We're all speculating that PlayStation will drop their console this year. PlayStation can turn around and say they're dropping their console in 2017. Or they could drop it around spring. If they all come out in spring 2017, then what? Now they're all competing again with new consoles. So, we'll see, man. We'll see what happens with it. Let's see here. Thomas White says, so they don't worry about NX sharing their spotlight. I mean, I don't know, like I said before, them sharing their spotlight, I don't think they do that. I think for them it doesn't matter. I think it's about competing and not giving any advantage or any time for people to get familiar with another console. That's what happened with me and 360. If the PS3, and it's the honest truth, I was a big PS2 fan. Here's the truth. I was a big PS2 fan. If the PS3 comes out the same time as the 360, I buy the PS3. God honest truth. I buy the PS3. I would eventually get a gear. I would have eventually got Xbox 360 without question. But I was such a big PS2 fan, that I buy the PS3 first. It's the same way I am now. I'm such a big Xbox fan that I would buy an Xbox before I would buy a PlayStation or Nintendo console. But I would eventually get one of those consoles. But that's what happened. The PS3 took a year, and Microsoft gained that momentum because of that advantage. And they were able to show gamers just how great the 360 was. Look at the Blaze. Look how we have this menu system. Look at the games that you're playing. At the time, think about the exclusives they had. Dead Rising, BioShock, Mass Effect. They have the Halo series, Crackdown, Fable, Forzas. Like, they had all these exclusives and all these games that were coming out that were exclusive to the platform. At the time, we really didn't know about time exclusivity. At the time, we only knew about it being exclusive. They had Call of Duty in their back pocket. They just had all of these games, and they had the opportunity to pump that out. Sony had such a slow start with the PS3. The games that came out weren't that great. Layer was trash. They had a few other games that were okay. Then they start to really kind of get themselves together, but the price tag was $600. They had backwards compatibility in the console. They took the backwards compatibility out of the console to make it cheaper. They dropped the price down. They remodeled it. There was a lot of things that Sony had to do to transition to get back into the game to compete. Right. And then by that time, they started really pumping out games. Started getting Infamous, Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, Gran Turismo. You started just getting all these different newer games, these newer IPs and stuff like that. Later in the life cycle, Xbox, Red Ring of Death just came out of the blue, start messing up. And, they're pumping out sequels and not pumping out new IPs. They're going with all types of marketing deals and not securing exclusives or creating. It was a disaster. And that's the truth. That is exactly what happened between the two consoles and how it scaled. But 360 as a console did so well with third parties that people forgave it because they just did so good with third parties. They did amazingly well with third parties. It was easy to produce for. It was easy to manufacture and stuff like that. And people were pumping out third parties and they just ran better and they looked better on a 360. And 360 has some amazing looking games first party, and PlayStation 3 has some amazing looking games first party. But at the end of the day, that 1 year was enough to garner enough attention from people in word of mouth. You had online, you had party chat. You were able to do that. If no one ever experiences those things within that year, if no one ever experiences those things, then how do you then try to convince the people to come? So that's why gaming up a year is really important, because you give people an opportunity to experience your console to a point that they don't want to get anything else. So it's super important. I spent way too much time on that question, but yeah, man, that's my answer on that. Okay, let's see. Since we got a lot of comments. Okay, here we go. Fastback says he would like to see Nintendo be successful with the NX. Good for young gamers being introduced to console gaming. You know something, Fastback? I hate that. I'm so sick of young people. I mean, I'm not really sick of young people. Don't get me wrong. But listen, exactly. Mark James gets it. Nintendo needs to grow up. This is the problem with Nintendo, you know. And no disrespect to the regime that they had, you know, Miyamoto and Iwata. But at the end of the day, man, we, the adults, grew up on Nintendo. We grew up on NES. We grew up on SNES. We grew up on N64. And guess what? They left us. They didn't mature with us. They didn't produce the mature games that we desire. That's why we've jumped to PS, and we've jumped to Xbox, because they produce the mature games that we're into, the heavy stories, the things that have graphics, things that have mature language. As mature gamers, you want things that appeal to you as a mature person. I don't want to play Donkey Kong that's a platformer, Mario that's a platformer, Kid Icarus is possibly a platformer, Kirby that's a platformer, you know, Mario Party, Mario Tennis, Mario Baseball, Luigi's Haunted House, you know, what is it? Animal Crossing, which, by the way, I loved on the GameCube. But come on, Animal Crossing? I'm a 35-year-old man. How am I playing Animal Crossing, bro? Like, could you imagine? Imagine if I was single and a woman walked in, saw me playing Animal Crossing, and they're like, beep, and I'm talking to some dude about trading apples. Come on, son. Like, at some point, you got to grow up. You know, Zelda, even they made Zelda more mature when they showed Zelda Wii U, the initial launch. I was into that. You know why? Because Zelda didn't look like, not Zelda, Link didn't look like somebody drew him with the big head and the big eyes, that Wind Waker. I hated that version of Link. I hated it so much. I was not getting it. So for me, seeing a more mature Zelda, a more realistic Zelda was appealing. And I was really into it. That's why I'm really thinking about getting an NX, because it really looks good. It really appealed to me. So, you know, they have to be able to grow up a bit. That's it, man. Get third-party support, make some mature IPs, make some new IPs. Look at Splatoon. Finally, a new IP. Not a new mascot, not a mascot that they're bringing back, not a mascot they've always had. A new IP, and look how that game sold. Look how that game sold. It just says a lot, man. The fans are clamoring. They need new stuff. Yes, Nintendo still has the handheld market, but even their 3DS, I heard recently, is on a decline. Kind of crazy situation. Thomas is like, way too long. You right about that. It's starting to finally belong to the mobile market. Let's see. Yeah, man. So just to finish up, again, I want to thank everybody for stopping out. I really appreciate everyone in the chat and everyone who gives questions every week, man. It's very important. I'm very grateful for that. I'm glad everyone shows up. Definitely trying to get on earlier. I'm doing my best to try to get on earlier, because, like I said, the earlier I'm on, the better it is for everybody to join in. It's not as late, and we get a chance to really talk and reflect on some things. But again, Nintendo needs to grow up. Microsoft needs to bring the power, and Sony, hopefully, their console isn't just a upclock. You know, I know this is an Xbox channel. I know some fans hate me talking about other consoles, but listen, again, I talk about Xbox extensively on Tick Podcast. I talk about Xbox extensively on my show as well. But there's nothing wrong with talking about other consoles every once in a while. I'm just reflecting on what's happening in the industry. That's what Super Podshots is about. It's about the buzz and what's happening. So I really want to thank everybody for coming out. I'll be back next week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Again, if I get on earlier, just keep an eye out for the YouTube channel, and hopefully my notification will pop up that I'm popping on for an earlier show at 8. Tomorrow we will have another episode of Tick United. If you guys haven't checked out the last episode of Tick United, definitely do. This episode will be talking about Civil War Avengers. Definitely check out that. They're going to give their reviews on it. Should be spoiler free, which is my understanding. And then Friday, we have a Tick Podcast episode. Some of the things that we're going to be doing to not oversaturate the channel, because I had a concern about just pumping out shows every day, not every week, but every day, was that we'll do some alternating things. So Tick Podcast will be every other Friday, and we'll alternate with Top Shelf with Anchorman, who has a small show called Top Shelf. Top Shelf pretty much just takes a subject and kind of analyzes that subject, and you guys can check out his latest show below. And then again, on Mondays, we'll have Multiverse next week. It didn't come out this week. They had some situations and things they had to take care of. So, and again, I am going to E3. I just got invited to the PC gaming conference. Will this convince me to get a PC? I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out, man. I don't know if it'll convince me to get a PC, but I'm looking forward to going. I've been invited, so I'm definitely going to go. I'm not going to pass up the opportunity. We'll be at the Bethesda conference, the Microsoft's conference. So I definitely am looking forward to seeing what they show. Hopefully they show something while I'm there. I'm definitely going to be at the Fan Fest. I'm trying to hit everything early, get a chance to look at everything early, and we will have a presence and definitely be delivering a lot of great content, a lot of great talk for this E3, much, much better than last year. So I'm very excited about that. So you guys keep it locked here. Appreciate all the support, and I will see you guys next week. I'm your host, KORSKLL, the last on the planet Xbox, and I'm off this planet. Peace.